So I think if you combine fun and learning, you have a full lecture hall, which is great, I mean, for me as an academic anyway. So I don't want to spend too much on myself because we have great guests tonight. They are big storytellers. They will tell stories about music, and music can tell stories about suffering, love, passion, melancholy a lot, especially if you come from those regions where we are from. So I think, so we have two parts tonight. First is a visual sonic lecture. Tuncay will be here. Tuncay is from Munich, and he is one of those guys that is equally talented at a lot of things, which makes me very jealous actually. So he's an anthropologist by training. He DJs, an incredible DJ. He's a musician, and he's also a cultural activist. So what we do here, he does actually in Munich, and he's been doing that for the past decades. So we are happy to have him here tonight. And then later, obviously, I will be here again to introduce our superstar of the night. But for now, please welcome Tuncay Acar.
Hello, welcome everybody. Nice, you're here, so many people. That's nice. This is the first time I do something like this about this kind of music, which I grew up with from very small childhood on. So it's a great honor for me to be here, the guest of Fri-Son and of Cezhane. Actually, Anil had the idea that I could do something like this. I am DJing from time to time in Zurich, and that's where we know each other. So, nice you are here. What I want to do is to present an inner perspective on this phenomenon called Anatolian Psychedelic music. It's a term that I didn't know before, because when I was listening to that music before, it was just folk pop. We listened to it with the whole family, even in Germany, but also in Turkey when I was there to visit my relatives. So we heard it on the radio, it was playing in the car, and it's something very natural for me. I grew up with it. And in the beginning of the 2000s, I realized that the records I grew up with are in the record store, marked with the term Anatolian Psychedelic funk. And I was like, I had a small heartache actually, because there is so much in this music for me. So it's not only psychedelic funk. So I want to tell you a bit about it. Especially I choose this kind of cheesy image because I am confronted with this cheesy images from the 2000s on. So I produced this image by myself, just trying to do it like all the others. It's a marketing idea. Wonderful woman in the background, a bit flu, Cappadocian landscape from Anatolia, and blurry colors and stuff. And this is the imagery we are used now. So I want to dive into the mystic phenomenon of exotica, Anatolian exotica, psychedelica. And as I said, this is a very, very new term for me, and it's kind of strange sometimes to see this term because it doesn't relate to the experience I had with this music. So this is a logo like from Finders Keepers. Finders Keepers is a label from London, and they started very early to reproduce albums from the 70s. And this is a kind of also a strange term, right? Anatolian invasion. But it's nice. And this is the logo of Finders Keepers, the label in London. And the other one is the original logo of Türkü Ola, which was a label founded in Köln in Germany, very early in the 70s. And they started to bring out music for all the foreign workers with Turkish origin in living in Germany, like me and my parents. So we used to listen to this music, and I didn't have records then, we were used to have tapes. Tapes was actually the medium number one. I will show you later some examples. And these are the images we are used. These are all the heroes of my childhood, and now they come like Californian hippies, and they are presented like this. And just to have a perspective on it, it's very different from the hippie scene in the 70s, which happened in California, in America, and also in Europe. But now it looks like they are all one family, which they were not. This is also another image, not old stars on the right and the left. And in the middle you have Altingen, which is a new band from Netherlands. I think you know them. They made this music also popular again. Actually, this is very nice that this music comes out again. I mean, it's not only negative. It is a marketing strategy that worked quite fine. And out of this movement came a lot of bands, and one of them will play later here. And these are the Funky Freaks, who are presented as the Anatolian Psychedelic musicians. And when you see such kind of pictures, you might have the image of there has to be some. There's someone phoning. There has to be some audience, some freaky audience in the Middle East and in Anatolia who were listening to this music and kind of sophisticated and avant-garde. But it wasn't. These people were playing for the normal people on the streets. They had their own audience, and I want to talk about this audience a bit. But first, I want to introduce you some big names of this kind of music. This is Erkin Koray, the big guitar hero, and he's a kind of a role model for all the rock musicians in Turkey still. And he's associated with the electric guitar. And he had a lot of big hits, and he was one of the earliest ones who created this kind of music. Then we have Selda Bagcan, of course. She had an image like the Turkish Joan Baez. She was also very oppositional and always with a certain political attitude, which I liked very, very much on her. So I was listening to her when I was about 8, 9 years old. And this is the pop hero Barış Manço. I think everybody knows him. And this image works quite fine. He's pop. He's also a part of this so-called psychedelic family. But Barış Manço was also mainstream pop a lot. And I will talk about this later. And this is the opposite of Barış Manço. They were both the counterparts in this. Cem Karaca, which I like very much. It's one of my heroes. I like him very much. And he had also this, he had always this image of a revolutionary. And you can see the loaded gun is missing. He was a big oppositional, and he had to flee the country for a few years because of that. And also, these were just a few examples. Sorry, we don't have so much time. I would like to introduce to you a lot of more people, but I just reduced it to the main characters. I hope they will forgive me. But I wanted to introduce Moğollar, which is a very important band, starting, I think, end of 50s, beginning of the 60s. And Moğollar were like the musical, the workers. They did the work in the background. And there were a lot of musicians who played with all the stars, with Barış Manço, with Erkin Koray, Edip Akbayram, and Selda Bagcan. They did all the recordings, and these guys are really very talented musicians. I want to introduce to you on the right, Cahit Berkay, one of the most important musicians from this era, but he's still making music. Taner Öngör on bass, Engin Yurdukoğlu, he doesn't live anymore, a wonderful, fantastic drum player. And Murat Ses, which was a very interesting figure, an innovator, and he played the keyboards and the organs in this music. You hear him in a lot of productions from that era. And these guys, they started actually in the end of 50s. It began that these guys were making rock and roll music. Like they had this Elvis kind of hairstyle and were doing rock and roll, you know, twisting around. And I want to play one example of Moğollar from their early phase. That's the kind of music they did, and they did it in the first beginnings at the schools where they started to have their education, and they formed bands and influenced by people like Elvis Presley and the Beatles, of course, and they were very fast. It happened that the main newspapers, they called out for some wettbewerb, competitions, band competitions, and Moğollar nearly won every time. But there were also other like Mavi, Işıklar, Silüetler, and they were all doing like 50s and 60s rock and roll kind of music. This was how they started, and very, very fast they realized that they had to reach out to a wider audience. But the wider audience was not happening in Turkey because they played for the elite students in the schools, you know, in the high school, and these were just a few people. So they had to think about what can we do to reach more people with our music, and of course they wanted to have an international career. But they realized very fast also that this was not so easy because of the segregation in the worldwide global music business. These kind of bands didn't have a chance singing English like the Beatles because the Beatles were already there. So they had to think about what to do to find their own audience. And this was their clientele. It was not the avant-garde hippies, it was not the intellectuals and kind of, you know, these are, my father is there, the third from the left in Munich, guest workers in Munich, and these people were inviting these people like Cem Karaca, Selda Bagcan, and others, Edip Akbayram. I saw them on stage when I was very small. We were dancing and jumping in front of the stage when they were playing. So I just wanted to show these people because this was the main audience. One more picture. My father on the left, and all the guys. I didn't really know what they did, but they organized a lot of concerts. Not only concerts, they had a political attitude, and they were organized in associations in Munich, and this was their main work. And slightly before the 80s coup d'etat in Turkey, which was very hard, a lot of oppositional musicians had to flee the country. So the first place they went when they wanted to go to Europe was Munich, And these people were staying in our houses. We organized the network for them. My father, my mother, and all their friends, not me, of course, but our people, they organized the network for them and gave them a chance to play their music. And to reach these audiences, these musicians had to find a strategy. And the strategy was to go away from the classical rock and roll hits from the West. They turned their focus back to Anatolia, where they came from, and were researching how can we reach the mass of our people with our music, but with the state-of-the-art equipment and with the state-of-the-art sound. So they created the sound, which was, of course, associated with the Western rock music and the psychedelic music, of course, because this was a big influence then. But they created something new. It was, in the first beginnings, it was mostly folk music. For example, there is one song of Erkin Koray, which went very famous, and now Altın covered the song too, and make it even more famous in these times. Maybe you know it. It's called Cemal'ım, and I researched and found one very old original of this song, sang by Ürgüplü Refik Başaran, which is a folk singer from the region of Cappadocia, and the song goes about a guy in Cappadocia who got shot, and it's kind of a mourning song about this guy who was called Cemal. So, and this is the original. Actually, it's a saga of a hero, and now we hear what Erkin Koray made out of this. strategy was very simple, actually, because these were the songs the people already knew. They heard it in the radio, they knew it from their childhood on, it's old songs, and they just took the old songs and made something new out of it, but they still reached the same audience. And not only the old audience, also the children of them, and the young audience. So actually they built their own audience. And this was the strategy behind Anatolian psychedelic funk. So I have another example. Folk song, a dance song, which is played on every occasion, actually mostly weddings in whole Anatolia. I guess the origin is Kurdish. This guy, Nizamettin Arıç, sings in Kurdish, but this song exists in Arabian language, in Armenian language, Turkish, and is a very popular song. So there was one 60s band, very, very nice looking guys you see on the left. It's called Silhouetler, the Silhouettes. And they made kind of surf rock, and this is the version. This is the version of them. Also, the same strategy, they took the very, very famous melody and they made a surf rock out of it. And they became very, very famous in the 60s. I have one more last example, and this is one of my favorite musicians, Selda Bagcan, who took a song of the old bard, Mahsuni Sherif, Aşık Mahsuni Sherif. And we first hear the original version.
İnce ince bir kar yağar fakirlerin düzüne. Neden felek inanmıyor fıkaranın sözüne? Öldük öldük biz açlıktan ekmeğim nudur. Kimi mebus kimi vali bize tahsil haramdır. Dayanamam artık senin bu yalancı pozuna. Yandık yandık bize okul, bize
This is a very honest political song of Aşık Mahsuni Sherif, which is one of my favorites from the old Aşıks. The Aşık means bard, who travels from village to village, from place to play the music and tell the people their history. And also the bards, the Aşıks, were known for their frank and honest attitude. So they didn't have fear from the governing people, and they took a lot of risk for this. And for this was of course a very good example for Selda Bagcan, because she has also a oppositional attitude, and she took this song and made this version out of it, which I like also very best. And this song was sampled by Mos Def, I guess, in the beginning of the 2000s. So it became quite famous. So after years of nobody just asking about Selda Bagcan, now she became famous again because of the power of her version of the song and of her music. Never want to stop that song. Everybody knows it. So this was a big influence for me when I was a child, because she's singing about the poor people and the snow is falling on their heads and they had nowhere to go. And the wealthy people, they don't care about the fate of these people. And this is what Selda Bagcan and Aşık Mahsuni Sherif were singing about. And it's a very honest outcry. So this was the reason why she had to flee. She had to go outside of the country for a few times, and we saw her. I had the luck to see her on stage, and my parents had chats with her, and I had the honor to know her personally. So we have this strategy of transforming the folk music into a new kind of pop. But what is the reason behind the depth of this music? Because the sound is very deep. If you listen to the music of the old Aşıks, you will realize that the sound has something very, very deep, which is not just simple composition. It depends, it builds on very old traditions of music making. And where does this have its origin? For this we have to have a short look at the map. If you see Turkey in the middle there, you can easily realize that this was a place, a region, where the people, if you wanted to go to Europe from the east, you had to go through here, because that's the reason why the Silk Road and the Salt Road, they both go to Turkey. And there were, over centuries, a lot of different people, a lot of different cultures who lived and still live in this region. And every one of them brought their own culture, their own language. It was a Jewish language, the Hebraic language of the Ashkenazim and the Sepharad, the Kurdish languages. Greeks have lived there for thousands of years, still living there, but pitifully not so many as they have been before. This has political reasons. The Armenians, and so on and on. I could tell you a lot of the folks in the north, the Caucasian people, like my parents, for example, are Georgian, and there were Laz people, Abkhaz, Cherkess. So you had a lot of people living there in a pluralist manner till the end of the Ottoman Empire. And this had its influence because these people had all certain religions and spiritual sources. And these sources you can hear in the music. It's mostly spiritual origin music. And one big figure was in the Middle Ages Pir Sultan Abdal, who is a symbol figure for the bards, for the ashiks, who walked through the country with the saz in their hand, telling the story, being honest, and telling the story of the people. Pir Sultan Abdal was very, very unique in his manner. He was a poet and a musician, and he got killed because of his honestness. And still in Turkey, people suffer from this. So I want to introduce you to the most important ashiks of the modern times. For example, Ashik Veysel. He's one of the most important figures of this kind of folk music, and he created a lot of classics for the Anatolian folk tradition. This is Neşet Ertaş. You see him here in front of the Cologne Dome because he was an ashik, you know. He went to all the places where his people were. So he also came to Germany in the 70s and he exercised his music here and was telling new stories. This is Ashik Mahsuni Sharif, one of the most wonderful people from this area. And these people are history now. And with them, the culture is history. The culture of the ashiks, the real ashiks. There's few examples like Erdal Erzincan and Muhsin Eroğlu and such kind of people who carry this tradition further in postmodern times. But, I mean, the old ones were the old ones. They were real. And now I want to introduce you to Ali Ekber Cicek. He comes from the Alawite tradition, and this is something very important I forgot to tell. Pir Sultan Abdal was Alawite. Alawite are a section of the Muslim religion, but they had as a prior prophet, not Muhammad, but one of his disciples, Ali. So there was a division, and this division lasted on into modern times, so a lot of Alawites had also to suffer like their forefathers before. But they still keep on developing this tradition, carrying this tradition, and this is why the most good saz players were Alawites and still are.
Sıdkı ismin oldum divanelikte, içtim şarabını mestanelikte. Kırkların ceminde dara düş oldum, kırkların ceminde dara düş oldum. Kırkların ceminde haydar haydar haydar haydar, haydar haydar haydar haydar, haydar dost dara düş oldum.
Eine ganz tiefe Persönlichkeit, ein Wahnsinnsmusiker, der leider nicht mehr unter uns weilt, Ali Ekber Cicek. One very great musician who is not living under us anymore. Sorry, I've switched in German. But I have to say that he was not only a musician, and he opened a new chapter because he was one of the investigators and the archivists who also were very, very important for the development of this music, and we have to be thankful for these people to archiving all this music. They notated the music. He was an academic also, so he had the skills to do that along with a lot of other people, of course. And I want to introduce you to them. The archivists, I just introduce a few of them, but I think it's important to mention them. They did their work in the beginning, starting in the beginning of the foundation of the Turkish Republic. And of course, they did this work with the motivation to create a kind of a national, ethnic unity of music compound. So this is something we have to see from a distance now, because this was the times then. Of course, it was not only an advantage, it was also a disadvantage, because everything in this region became Turkish now. But on the other hand, they notated the music. They archived and registered the music, so we have a wonderful, huge archive of this folk music in Turkey now, and this has a big value. These are the sources on which the later pop stars and rock stars of the so-called psychedelic scene could build on. For example, Muzaffer Sarı Sözen. These are guys who were just riding through the country on horsebacks and visiting the people and notating the music. And Neriman and Nida Tüfekçi, just a very short video. This was a couple, and they worked together for years. I just wanted to mention these people because they did a lot of work. And one very important figure of Turkish music, Arif Sağ, of course, one of the big virtuosos of the saz. He played in nearly every production you can hear. Sometimes the people didn't even credit him on the recordings. And he played for everything, for everyone, because he wanted to support the music of other people a lot. He still lives, fortunately, and he's still doing music. He's not only playing the saz, he's a multi-instrumentalist. And he also did a lot of notating and registering the old music and the old songs. So these were just a few examples. There are a few more, but I just wanted to introduce a few of them so you know that these people did a lot of work and I wanted to honor them by this. Now the next question. These questions are questions that I got asked, so that's why I wanted to answer them. By this occasion, they asked me a lot, why were the productions in Turkey so good? They were so good because it started, I guess, in the time behind the Second World War. And like nearly everywhere in the world, the Americans started to spread their influence in economical wise and also cultural. In Germany, they did this too, with art and music, jazz, for example. And this jazz music also influenced the early Turkish Republic, beginning in the 40s. And these cars, I guess you know them from Havana too. They were brought to Havana, exported to Havana in the 50s, and also they came to Turkey in the 50s. They are the symbol of the American influence on the local economics. This was good on one side, on the other side it had also very negative consequences. I don't want to go dive deep into this issue now, but these cars, I know them from my childhood on, they were very popular and you can see them everywhere. The Plymouths, the Cadillacs, and the Dodges, and all these cars. And it started with this actually. And then jazz came. And in the Turkish Republic, the academies tried to find people who engaged themselves, young people who started making music in classical music, but also in jazz. So they took the people from the streets nearly, looking if they had talent, put them in the academy, and a lot of good musicians came out of this. For example, Fri-Son with the trumpet, he's a very important Turkish jazz musician. And in the beginning of Turkish jazz, which is a very important episode of Turkish music, there were a lot of people, descendants from the Greek minorities, the Armenian musicians, and from the Jewish minority. And these people, they made the music popular in the first beginnings. And it grew and grew, and unfortunately from the 50s on, these people had to vanish. They had to flee the country or leave. But the music stayed, and jazz was a very big thing then. And I recommend you to watch the documentation, Jazz in Turkey, from the regisseur Batu Akyol. There you can find more information about this very important era. And a few of the very important jazz musicians, Tülay German, a wonderful singer, Ayten Altman, also a very big jazz interpreter. Fri-Son, as mentioned further. And Okay Temiz, of course, he became very big and still is one of the last pillars of the jazz tradition of Turkey from the old. And he made a lot of good, very wonderful productions. Ahmet and Nesuhi Ertegün, if you don't know, they were also sons of a diplomat of the consul in New York, the Turkish consul. And they went to New York and they realized that the music of the black people in America was not published by no one because they didn't want to. The white people had no sense for the music. So they founded actually Atlantic Records, and they made black music in America hip. But Ahmet Ertegün was also a jazz arranger and composer and a very good piano virtuoso. but he went abroad to find his career there. Arif Mardin, one of the biggest, most influential music producers of the world, came from Istanbul, and he produced soul and funk music, and also with Motown Records, and he worked also with Ahmet and Nasuhi Ertuğrul together. So there was a big tradition of Western music in Turkey, and through the American influence in Turkey, very fast developed a production sector, a scene where good music could be produced. So this is the reason why in Turkey the productions are so good from the beginning of the 60s on. Then Erol Pekcan, also very nice Turkish jazz. And now I want to play you a song of Mafi Falay, and Okay Temiz was also in this band. It's called Batumi. So you can hear to what the jazz influence in Turkish music led. Song in 7/8 measure, a song that goes about Batumi, one of the metropoles of Georgia on the Black Sea, where my forefathers came from. Actually, that's why me and my band also interpreted this song on an EP that we brought out in April, and I will show it to you later. So this is a very good example of what came out of this Turkish jazz phenomenon also, and this was also very important. So we have a good tradition of music, we have good production situations, we have everything we need, but we can't go out into the international music scene. Why? Because of the segregation in the music industry. Ahmet Ertuğrul, Nasuhi Ertuğrul, Arif Mardin, they went to America and they made Western productions because they knew that they couldn't come far with this Turkish music. So, this is something that carried on till now, and now from the beginning of the 2000s on, this music got focus again, which is very nice. And now people like Gaye Suakyol, for example, they can take the step into the international music scene too, which is also very, very, very, very good, from my opinion. But it was not only they were not only suffering under the segregation. They found, the Turkish music producers, they found their own way to distribute their music. Actually, in Germany, this started in the 70s. These were three very important labels in Germany started. Uzelli in Frankfurt, Minarici in Munich, and Türkoğlu in Köln. And they distributed their music in Turkish shops, like vegetable shops and supermarkets and stuff. And I just want to show you quick, these were the tapes we were listening to. Here you can see Minarici shop in Munich, where I was often as a child, the boss of the label together with Ferdi Tayfur, one of the biggest Turkish stars then. And this is how the tapes looked like. This was big business. They were selling millions of them, but were not recognized by the Turkish administration. And they were good with this because they didn't want to share the money with the German distribution companies. These are my favorites, Derdi. This is my album. We brought it out on April, and you can buy it here on the merch too. Thank you for coming. I wanted to keep it quick and short because Now we have a special guest on stage and we don't want to wait further. Thank you.
Okay, so there is a short break. Get some refreshments there, a beer. If you want us to come back, please spend some more at the bar. But you can also buy some merch, as he just said. We have our own merch here as well, and Gayet Rakyol has also her own merch. So a short break, and then let's see you later, right?
Ateş olup yaksam ben